She didn't scream. Not once. Not when they chained her to the obsidian pillar beneath Varnari's twin sons. Not when the ceremonial torches passed from hand to hand, judges cloaked in crimson, chanting ancient words about purity, legacy, and the cleansing of forbidden blood. Not even when her father, High Marshal Cardoon himself, lit the pyre with the authority of law and the eyes of a traitor. She only looked forward, at the hollow screen across from her, streaming the execution live to one man, the human they said had corrupted her soul. He didn't scream either. His voice had been taken hours ago, stripped out of him by neural cuffs and silent sedation. He could barely move, barely think. But when he saw her, standing so calm, so impossibly strong, even as the flames licked the hem of her ceremonial dress, he broke. His name was Ambassador Rain Carter, Earth's envoy to the Varnari Imperium, now a prisoner, a witness, a symbol, and soon, the storm. The fire rose, her silhouette blurred, the robes ignited, then her skin, then her voice, quiet and steady, spoke just once through the burning. I'm not afraid of death, but you should be afraid of what comes after me. They silenced the feed after that, but not before Earth saw it. All of it. The footage went viral within 6 minutes of being intercepted by Terran intelligence. It looped on every screen in the Sol Federation. Orbitals, bunkers, colonies, stations, even classrooms. People cried, others screamed, and some just clenched their fists. She was Varnari. Yes, but she'd loved one of us, had lived among us, laughed in our cities, sung Terran songs. She had chosen us, and now she was dead for it. The Varnari called it honor restoration. We called it war. No debates, no council resolutions, no time-wasting condemnation speeches. Earth sent one reply, broadcast to every quadrant, 6 words, chiseled into the void. You burned her. Now we burn you. Rain was recovered from a neutral moon 6 hours later. He was barely conscious, surrounded by galactic diplomats trying to explain the event as a cultural necessity, a tragic misunderstanding, an unfortunate matter of sovereignty. But Earth didn't accept their sovereignty, not anymore, because sovereignty ends where genocide begins. And this wasn't just murder. It was a message sent in fire. And now, we replied in flame. They told Rain he was free, but the cuffs were still there, not around his wrists, around his mind, around his soul. He sat in the medical ward of Lunar Command, wrapped in silence like a man buried alive. His body had been fed, his wounds were gone, his voice had returned. But he didn't speak, not when the Terran president called, not when the Admiralty asked for his statement, not when the tribunal offered justice, diplomacy, even vengeance. He said nothing, until they played her voice. Her real voice, not the one from broadcasts, not the scream Earth remembered, but a message she'd recorded 3 weeks before her death, archived on her implant, and recovered by a covert Terran strike team that risked everything to bring it home. It was her, laughing, gently, warmly, like fire before it learns to burn. Rain, she said. I know they'll find out. I know your people warned us. I know this can't last. Silence, then a breath. But I chose you anyway. I'll keep choosing you. Even when they try to take my name, my body, my voice, because love, Rain, love is rebellion in places like this. And I was born for rebellion. He didn't blink, didn't breathe. Then he stood, walked to the operations table, looked down at the star map, tracking Varnari Prime. His voice broke the silence, not weak, not wounded. Forged. I want the AURORA. That name hadn't been spoken in 10 years. The AURORA wasn't a ship. It was a promise. Buried in the heart of Earth's military code, activated only under one condition: when justice failed. It had no crew, no seats, no AI that comforted or cared, just judgment. Rain didn't ask to command it. He asked to become it. The High Command resisted, said it was too dangerous, said the Varnari still had allies, said the galaxy wouldn't understand. But Earth understood. We'd buried too many voices, too many daughters, too many lovers. Not this time. The fleet launched under blackout protocols. No press releases, no proud speeches, just quiet departure, and the long, cold hum of slip space preparing to open its jaws. Rain watched through the viewport as Earth faded behind him. He remembered her face, not the one in the fire, the one that woke him in the mornings, that argued about Terran tea versus Varnari spice blends, that said I love you like it was a confession and a dare at the same time. He remembered all of it. Because memory, that's what they can't burn. The AURORA greeted him in silence. She floated in the shadows beyond Mars' orbit, coated in stealth alloys, shaped like a blade plunged into the dark. She had no lights, no sound, just pulse. She opened for him. No passwords, no ceremony. Like she'd been waiting. And when he stepped inside, the ship sealed shut, as if to say, "We won't come back until it's done." Varnari Prime was already preparing defenses. They'd seen the fleets move, heard Earth's silence, felt the cold weight of consequence rushing through the stars. They sent envoys, pleas, excuses. "We didn't know," they said. "It was her people," they said. "An internal matter." But some things aren't internal when they're broadcast to the stars. Some things you answer for. Rain didn't reply. He entered their system at relativistic speed, faster than their tracking arrays could comprehend. The first orbital platform didn't explode. It disappeared, folded in on itself by gravitational torpedoes that rewrote the rules of mass. The second platform tried to hail for surrender. The AURORA sent back a single word: Sci-Fi. Then silence. Then fire. But this wasn't genocide. Rain didn't target civilians, didn't level cities, didn't destroy their culture. He destroyed the system that killed her, the High Tribunal, the ministries of tradition, the grand temple that had issued the execution writ. Every tower of power erased in minutes. And from orbit, the AURORA broadcast her voice again. Her final message, played on every screen, every comm, every station. The Varnari wept, because for the first time, they heard her. Really heard her. In a single day, the honor code fell, like it had never existed, like it never deserved to. Rain stood in the command chamber of the AURORA, eyes fixed on the burning sky of Varnari Prime, and he said, not to the crew, not to the galaxy, But to her, this wasn't vengeance. A pause. A breath. This was the answer to your fire. There was no anthem when the Aurora descended. No banners, no parades, just silence. The kind that rolls through history right before something irreversible happens. Varnari Prime had fallen. Not to bombs, not to genocide. To the one thing they feared more than death. Change. The temples were gone. The judges were gone. The sacred flames of honor cleansing now smoldered in ruin, reduced to ash by a single whisper passed between cities. The humans didn't just come with weapons, they came with proof. Sayalari's execution, her message, her love, broadcast across their empire, on repeat. No more hiding, no more rewriting history to fit the myth of purity. The myth had bled out, and the man who bled for her was coming to finish what the fire had started. Rain touched down alone. No guards, no armor, just a Terran flag on one shoulder, worn, cracked, and faded, and a sealed urn in his hand. He walked through the capital's shattered gates as Varnari citizens watched from the ruins. Mothers held children. Elders knelt in shame. No one stopped him, because grief speaks a language no army can defend against. And vengeance, when made righteous, walks like a funeral procession. At the center of the city stood the high tower, once white, now charred black. The same tower where she'd been sentenced. The same tower where her father, the great Marshal Cardoon, had lit the fire that killed his only daughter. He waited at the top. No guards, just the weight of a decision he could never unmake. Rain climbed the spiral stairs slowly, deliberately. Each step a heartbeat, each heartbeat a memory. The way she used to hum while sharpening her ceremonial blades. The way she used to roll her eyes at earth music but still dance when no one was watching. The way she whispered home into his neck as they watched stars spin from her balcony. Every step was a resurrection, not of her body, but of her truth. Cardoon stood facing the window, armor stripped, robes torn, a broken man cloaked in silence. When he turned to face Rain, there was no hate in his eyes, only regret, and something worse, a quiet recognition. He had expected soldiers, bombs, a trial. He had not expected this, not the man, not the ashes in his hand, and certainly not the voice of his daughter, playing softly from Rain's collar. Over and over and over. The silence stretched like a blade between them. Then Rain spoke, quietly, deliberately. You lit the fire that killed her. Cardoon didn't answer. You called it tradition. Still silence. You looked her in the eyes, and you still did it. Cardoon closed his own eyes, and for the first time they saw moisture at the edges. I was her father, he said. The words shook. I thought I was preserving our way. Rain stepped forward, not with fury, with something sharper, disappointment. You didn't preserve anything. You destroyed the one thing your people needed. Cardoon looked up, hollow. What was that? Rain held up the urn. Hope. He set the urn gently on the marble floor between them, and for a long moment the two men stood, on opposite sides of death, love, and history. Then Rain did something no one expected. He knelt, not in submission, in reverence. He opened the urn and let the ashes scatter across the stone where her life had ended. Wind from the broken tower blew them into the morning light, and in that moment, it wasn't a war, it was a funeral, the last one she ever needed. Rain stood. His voice was calm now, grounded. I didn't come here to kill you. That would be easy. Cardoon blinked. I came here so you'd live long enough to see what she'll become. The former marshal trembled. What is she now? Rain's eyes didn't waver. The first Varnari ever buried with Terran honors. The first to die for loving one of us. And the last whose death will go unanswered. He turned, walked toward the broken door, stopped only once. She wasn't your shame. She was your salvation. Rain left the tower in silence, but the people didn't stay silent, not anymore. A child knelt by the steps where the ashes had touched. A mother joined, then dozens, hundreds. No chants, no songs, just hands, pressed to the earth, in a prayer not to gods, but to the memory of a girl who dared to love beyond species, beyond fear, beyond fate. In orbit, the AURORA dimmed her lights, and for the first time since her activation, she entered rest mode. Her mission was complete. Justice had spoken. Now, remembrance would echo. The war was over. But the silence lingered. It drifted through the corridors of the Terran fleet. It slept on the streets of Varnari Prime. It followed Rain wherever he went, not like a shadow, but like a weight that refused to be set down. Because justice is heavy. It isn't a medal you wear. It's a name you carry. And hers was carved into him now. The galaxy called it a peace accord. They signed papers. They exchanged tokens. They shook hands before cameras. But the truth was simpler. It wasn't peace because leaders wanted it. It was peace because they were afraid of what Earth would do if they broke it. The Varnari abolished the honor code. Not gradually, not with slow reforms. They ripped it out of their laws in a single vote, and in its place, they carved a new law. 4 words, etched into every courthouse, every tribunal, every place that had ever passed a death sentence for honor. So, love is not a crime. They held the first remembrance ceremony 1 month later. Not on Earth, not on Varnari Prime, but on the station where they'd first met. It was small, quiet. No grand speeches, just people who understood what had been lost and what had been found. Rain stood at the edge of the crowd. He didn't wear his uniform, didn't bring medals. Just a single white blossom from her favorite garden. He placed it beneath her holographic memorial. The image shimmered in the air. Not her execution, not her as a diplomat, just her laughing, the way he remembered. A small Varnari girl tugged at his sleeve. Is it true? She asked. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. My mother says you came for her, all the way from another star. Rain knelt, met her eyes. It's true. The girl hesitated. Why? He thought about the answer, and for once it wasn't vengeance. It wasn't war. It wasn't even justice. It was the thing that had started all of this. The thing that had carried him through fire, silence, and the coldest parts of space. Because, he said softly, when someone you love is taken from you, you don't count the light years. You just go. When the ceremony ended, the crowd began to drift away. But Rain stayed, watched the stars through the viewing glass, and in the reflection, for just a moment, he swore he saw her, standing beside him. No flames, no chains, just her, smiling. The Aurora was decommissioned a week later. She was too dangerous to keep active, too perfect at what she was built to do. They didn't dismantle her. They didn't bury her in some forgotten hangar. They placed her in orbit over Earth, silent, waiting. Because maybe someday, she'd be needed again. Years passed. The galaxy changed. Treaties shifted. Borders blurred. Old enemies became awkward allies. But on every new colony, every new station, human or alien, there was a monument. Not to fleets, not to armies, to her. A girl who loved against the rules. And to the man who refused to let the rules decide her worth. Rain never stopped visiting her memorial. Sometimes he spoke. Sometimes he didn't. But every time, he touched the base of the monument and left a white blossom. Because love, when it's real, outlives the fire. And if you stand close enough, if you listen just right, you can still hear her voice in the wind between the stars. I'll keep choosing you.